Welcome, viewers, to tonight's terrifying tales, when science experiments unleash horror. In the shadowy corners of scientific ambition lurks a tale so chilling it blurs the line between life and death. The reanimation disaster unveils a secretive experiment that dared to reanimate deceased organisms, pushing the boundaries of nature and ethics. This story begins with a vision that defies the finality of death, setting the stage for a narrative fraught with terror and fascination. At the heart of this audacious endeavor was a scientist, brilliant yet deeply obsessed. Driven by a quest for knowledge and a refusal to accept the limitations of mortality, this individual embarked on a journey that would challenge the very essence of life. Their intelligence was matched only by their ambition, leading them down a path few would dare to tread. The experiment first bore fruit with the successful reanimation of a small animal, a feat that should have been celebrated as a scientific breakthrough. Instead, it marked the beginning of an unforeseen horror. What was once dead flickered back to life, not as a beacon of hope, but as a harbinger of chaos. Emboldened by initial success, the experiment escalated to human subjects. The prospect of conquering death itself blinded the scientist to the ethical and moral ramifications. This step crossed a line that should have remained inviolate, transforming a quest for knowledge into a nightmare scenario. The horrifying consequences of reanimating a human corpse soon became apparent. Far from the anticipated triumph, the result was an abomination of nature, a being caught between life and death. This entity, once a subject of scientific curiosity, quickly became an uncontrollable force, unleashing a wave of terror that would forever haunt those who dared to defy nature's laws. The reanimation of a small animal marked the first horrifying success of the experiment. The scientist, driven by a blend of obsession and brilliance, managed to cross the boundary between life and death. This breakthrough, however, was only the beginning of a terror that would soon escalate beyond control. As the experiment progressed, the scientist's ambition veered towards the ultimate test, reanimating a human corpse. Ignoring the ethical red flags, they proceeded, blinded by the potential scientific glory. This step marked a point of no return, pushing the boundaries of nature and morality. The reanimation of the human subject was initially seen as a triumph, but joy quickly turned to horror. The revived corpse, though alive, was far from human in its behavior and cognition. It became clear that some thresholds are not meant to be crossed, as the subject exhibited unpredictable and terrifying traits. Chaos ensued when the reanimated subject escaped the confines of the laboratory. The creature, driven by primal instincts, caused havoc, leaving the scientist and the team in a state of shock and disbelief. The incident raised alarms about the dangerous power of playing God with life and death. The moral and ethical downfall of the scientist became evident. What started as a quest for scientific breakthrough spiraled into a nightmare of ethical breaches and moral quandaries. The tragic end of the experiment and its subject served as a grim reminder of the consequences of unchecked ambition in science. The experiment's culmination was as tragic as it was horrifying. The reanimated human, once a beacon of scientific breakthrough, became an uncontrollable entity. Its existence, a stark reminder of the fine line between life and death, led to an inevitable cascade of events that would haunt the scientific community forever. In the wake of the disaster, the brilliant scientist faced a devastating moral and ethical collapse. Obsession with pushing the boundaries of science had blinded him to the consequences of his actions. The fallout from his experiment not only destroyed his reputation, but also left an indelible mark on his conscience. Meanwhile, a secretive government agency embarked on an equally terrifying venture: mind control. Conceived in the shadows, this project aimed at manipulating the human psyche, promising unparalleled power over free will. Innocent individuals were turned into unwitting pawns, setting the stage for an unprecedented catastrophe. As the mind control experiment advanced, the initial triumphs quickly soured. Participants, stripped of their autonomy, began exhibiting severe psychological distress. The ripple effects were catastrophic, ensnaring even those who had no part in the experiment. It wasn't long before the project spiraled out of control, leaving a trail of mental anguish and chaos. The aftermath was chilling. Participants' lives were irrevocably altered, their minds fractured by the invasive manipulation. Families were torn apart, struggling to cope with the unpredictable and often violent outbursts of their loved ones. The agency's desperate attempts to contain the situation only highlighted the grave consequences of their overreach. The experiment that promised to revolutionize mind control quickly spiraled into a nightmare. As the government agency pushed the boundaries of ethics, involuntary participants were subjected to rigorous and invasive procedures. These early stages, masked as a triumph of human engineering, harbored a sinister reality beneath the surface. Initial successes in manipulating thoughts and actions gave way to unforeseen consequences. Participants, once ordinary people, found themselves losing control over their own minds. This loss of agency was not just a personal tragedy, but a ticking time bomb, set to detonate amidst the unsuspecting public. As the experiment grew more chaotic, the effects began to ripple out, touching the lives of innocent bystanders. The once controlled environment of the laboratory could no longer contain the havoc. Society became an unwitting participant in an experiment gone horribly wrong, witnessing firsthand the dangers of tampering with the human psyche. Families of the participants bore the brunt of this catastrophe. Their loved ones, transformed into strangers by the experiment, left a trail of broken homes and hearts. The emotional and psychological toll was immeasurable, a hidden cost of the project's ambition that was too often overlooked. The agency, faced with mounting evidence of its failure, made the decision to terminate the project. Yet the scars left by the experiment were deep, its impacts far-reaching. Efforts to erase its existence were futile. The memories of those affected and the societal upheaval it caused remained as haunting reminders of the catastrophe. As the groundbreaking experiment in genetic modification progressed, the initial triumphs were soon overshadowed by a series of alarming side effects. The scientists, driven by ambition, had hoped to unlock superhuman abilities, but instead, they unwittingly opened Pandora's box. Subjects began to exhibit bizarre and dangerous mutations, far from the envisioned enhancements. These mutations were not contained to the laboratory subjects. They began to spread, casting a shadow over the general population. A mere touch or exchange of bodily fluids was enough to pass on the horrific genetic alterations. Society found itself on the brink of collapse as these once human mutations roamed the streets. The mutations varied wildly, from grotesque physical deformities to unpredictable, volatile abilities that posed a threat to all. The public, unprepared and vulnerable, descended into chaos. Governments and health organizations scrambled to respond, but the rapid spread outpaced their efforts, leading to widespread panic and disorder. Efforts to reverse the genetic modifications proved to be futile. Scientists and geneticists worldwide collaborated in a desperate attempt to find a cure, or at least a method to halt the progression of mutations. However, the complexity of the genetic alterations combined with the rapid spread made every attempt unsuccessful. The moral implications of the experiment became a topic of global debate. The ambition to surpass the natural limits of human capabilities had led to a catastrophic situation. This tragic outcome served as a grim reminder of the dangers of playing God with human genetics, highlighting the ethical boundaries that should never be crossed in scientific pursuit. As the genetic modification experiment spiraled out of control, the first subjects began to show dangerous mutations. These were not the superior human traits the scientists had hoped for. Instead, they were uncontrollable and terrifying changes that transformed the subjects into something unrecognizable, triggering a wave of fear across communities. The mutations, initially confined to the experiment subjects, soon spread to the general population. A viral component of the genetic modification allowed the mutations to transfer, causing widespread panic. Cities were thrown into chaos as mutated individuals, unable to control their new abilities or deformities, roamed the streets, inciting terror. Amidst the pandemonium, attempts to reverse the genetic alterations proved futile. Scientists scrambled to find a cure or a way to halt the mutation's progression, but the genetic changes were too complex and intertwined with the subject's DNA. The irreversible alterations left many grappling with their new, unpredictable realities. The moral implications of the experiment began to weigh heavily on society. The endeavor to enhance human abilities had crossed a line, venturing into territory that many felt should remain untouched. The ethical debate around playing God with human genetics intensified, prompting a global reevaluation of genetic experimentation boundaries. The outcome for both the subjects of the experiment and the world at large was bleak. With no solution in sight, the mutated individuals had to find ways to integrate into society, while the rest of the world grappled with the consequences of unchecked scientific ambition. The episode served as a chilling reminder of the dangers of pushing the boundaries of science too far. The exploration of genetic modification held the promise of catapulting humanity into a new era of health and capability. However, the ambition to create superhumans quickly devolved into a nightmare. The initial triumphs were soon overshadowed by grotesque mutations, showcasing the peril of tampering with the delicate fabric of human genetics. The fallout was catastrophic, with society unable to contain the spread of genetic anomalies. Chaos reigned as those affected were ostracized, feared, and in some cases, hunted. The quest to reverse the mutations proved futile, underscoring the irreversible nature of such scientific endeavors and the ethical quandaries they pose. This grim saga serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of overstepping scientific boundaries. It highlights the consequences of pursuing knowledge without considering the moral implications. The pursuit of scientific advancement, devoid of ethical considerations, can lead to irreversible damage to individuals and society at large. In the wake of these horrifying events, it's imperative to reflect on the importance of ethical science. Staying informed and vigilant about scientific endeavors is crucial to preventing such tragedies. The public must demand transparency and ethical accountability from the scientific community to ensure that research benefits humanity without causing harm. As we close this gruesome journey through science's darker chapters, let us remember the lessons learned. Not all scientific pursuits lead to enlightenment. Some paths are fraught with dangers that can eclipse the intended benefits. It's our collective responsibility to tread carefully, ensuring that science remains a beacon of hope and not a harbinger of doom. As the curtain falls on this harrowing exploration of science's shadowy corridors, we're reminded of the profound responsibility that accompanies the pursuit of knowledge. Thank you for watching isn't just a polite farewell. It's a call to reflect on the lessons learned and the paths we choose to illuminate with science, ensuring that our quest for enlightenment doesn't lead us into darkness. This brings us to the end of our trilogy for this evening. We hope you have enjoyed our cautionary tales. If you would like to see more of our horror stories, please like and subscribe to our channel to enjoy more terror tales. For now, sleep well, viewer, and we hope to see you next time.